Hello there, and thank you so much for joining us on Citizen Weekend on this, the 20th day of February 2015. My name is Lillian Muli Kanene. Now, parents and guardians can now heave a sigh of relief after the government outlined a new school fee structure that will see the cost of secondary education drop drastically with immediate effect. A new structure announced by the Education Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi has capped fees for day secondary schools at 9,374, while the maximum fees for boarding school is 55,553 shillings per year.
After a long wait and pressure from different quarters, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi has finally issued new guidelines on the maximum fees payable to all public secondary schools.
The maximum costs of this school is going to be 22,244. While that of boarding schools will stand at 66,424. I hope that is very clear. And for special needs secondary schools, it will be 69,810.
According to the guidelines, public day schools will charge a maximum fees of 9,374 shillings. Boarding schools will charge fees capped at 53,553 shillings, while special needs schools will charge a maximum of 37,210 shillings annually. The new structure comes 4 months since the Kilemi Moiria-led task force presented a report to the president. Kaimenyi's new fees guidelines are, however, 31% higher than those proposed by the task force, something that the CS was quick to justify.
This increase takes cognizance of the fact that teacher redistribution, as mentioned earlier on, and employment, rationalization of non-teaching staff, as was mentioned earlier on, merger of uneconomical schools, and implementation of proposed subsidies are yet to be effected. You know, this is something which will be done later.
The new fees will apply to all public secondary schools, including national schools, and they take effect immediately. Under the new structure, schools will not be allowed to charge levies for infrastructure development and school transport projects with effect from next year. The Education Cabinet Secretary also directed school heads who have already overcharged parents and guidance to either refund the extra fees or spread them out to cover fees for the coming years. Patrick Igunza, Citizen TV.
The Popular Constituency Development Fund will not be allocated any money in the next budget after the High Court suspended the CDF Act for being unconstitutional. The court ruled the act violated the doctrine of separation of powers between the legislature and the executive and the principles of public finance. The three-judge bench further faulted the act for ignoring the Senate. Hussein Mohammed with more on the ruling.
The ruling could now herald the end of the Popular Constituency Development Fund, also known as CDF. The judgment arose from a petition by the Institute for Social Accountability and the Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance, seeking to invalidate the CDF Amendment Act for violating constitutional regulations on public finance and division of revenue, as well as the separation of powers. Justices Isaac Lenaola, David Majanja and Mombi Ngoge concurred with the petitioner's concerns on constitutional provisions on revenue sharing and ruled that CDF, being a grant from the national government, should be channeled through the counties since constituencies are, after all, an administrative unit in the county. The court also faulted the act for failing to involve the Senate during its enactment. The petitioners also argued that the CDF Act violates the doctrine of separation of powers, as MPs are supposed to provide checks and balances and not to plan and implement projects. The judges thus suspended the Act for 1 year, a period within which the government is required to make the necessary amendments to the CDF Act. Failure to do so will lead to the nullification of the Act, effectively abolishing the Popular Fund. The grace period will also allow time for ongoing CDF projects to be completed. Without CDF funds, MPs will have been denied a powerful source of influence in the constituency as they wield considerable clout in the management of the kitty. Hussein Mohammed, Citizen Weekend.
And Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir and former NEC boss Paul Wasanga were today grilled by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission detectives over their alleged involvement in the Chicken Gate scandal. Wasanga and Chirchir have both denied receiving bribes to influence the awarding of tenders to a UK-based printing firm, Smith and Osman.
Former NEC boss Paul Wasanga was mentioned in a report by the Serious Fraud Office in the United Kingdom as having colluded to award multi-million shilling tenders to a British firm, Smith and Osman, to print exam papers. He is accused of having received a 750,000 shilling bribe, allegations that Wasanga was quick to dismiss while he appeared at the anti-graft body officers today.
Well, all other printers were pre-qualified. We have 9 other printers who are pre-qualified, but the awarding of the tenders for Smith has been above board, where they have been. It's only that in the times when they have printed examinations, they have won the tender.
Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir, who was implicated in the now infamous Chicken Gate scandal, appeared at Integrity Centre to record a statement as well. Chirchir was alleged to have received bribes while he was a commissioner at the now defunct Interim Independent Electoral Commission, IIEC.
I've answered the questions that has been put to me, and I want to confirm to you that I've had a very nice interview, something that I've longed for, to basically be able to articulate the issues I know and the issues I don't know.
The two all the while maintaining their innocence.
And I've encouraged all of us who may have evidence as regarding the allegations that we've seen to basically come forward with those evidences so that we can close this issue.
I think the allegations were allegations, and these are not things which I did, and I made the clarification, and the Commission have been very good. They asked me all the questions to clarify those allegations that were made, and I managed to do the clarification as long as there were all the questions that were asked. I managed to answer them.
IBC Chair Ahmed Isaac Hassan was the first to appear at the EACC offices yesterday over the allegations implicating him in the scheme to award a tender to the British firm during his tenure at the now defunct IIEC. The multi-million shilling scandal, codenamed Chicken, was alleged to have been shared by Hassan, the then IIEC Commissioners Davis Chirchir, Ken Nyaundi and Joseph Denner, as well as the immediate former IEBC Chief Electoral Officer James Oswago, and procured through a broker known as Trevi James Oyombira. A London court last week jailed 2 directors of Smith and Osman Company 18 months and 3 years respectively after finding them guilty of bribing the IIEC officials to secure a tender to print ballot papers.
Activist Tokia Umtata has gone to the High Court to seek orders to compel the Communication Authority of Kenya to restore the analog signals of 3 leading media houses which have been off-air for 6 days now. Umtata claims CAK selectively implemented the Supreme Court ruling by switching off the analog signals in adherence to the set deadlines while ignoring the order to have the temporary self-provisioning authorization restored. He wants the court to allow the 3 media houses to broadcast on the analog platform until the 30th of May when they will have rolled out their infrastructure network. Justice Isaac Lenaola has directed the activists to serve Africa Digital Network Group, comprising of the Royal Media Services, the Standard Group and the Nation Media Group, with a petition so that they could explain to the court what the problem is before any order can be granted. The case will be heard on the 25th of February 2015.
Cut off their broadcasting infrastructure. Because the reason why the Supreme Court gave them the license, the self-provisioning license, where they can carry only their content and not the third party's content, was so that they could create the infrastructure to broadcast. But they are not ready. But that's not, yeah, they're not ready. They require here 30 days, okay, which fall within the international switch-off date of July 17.
Elsewhere, a man convicted of murder during the 2007-2008 post-election violence has been sentenced to death after appealing an earlier life sentence. 26-year-old Peter Kipkemboi Ruto was convicted of murder in June 2012 after the High Court in Nakuru found him guilty of killing 70-year-old Kamau Kimani Thiongo during the post-poll chaos that followed the 2007 disputed presidential elections.
He hoped to be freed, or at least his life sentence made lighter. Instead, he has been condemned to death. The Court of Appeal sitting in Nakuru held that Peter Kipkemboi Ruto was rightly convicted.
The only punishment
The three-judge bench ruled that the trial court properly made its findings when it convicted him of murder. They further compounded Kipkemboi's situation when they changed the life sentence imposed by High Court Judge Roslyn Wendo to a death sentence.
The appeal is found to have no merits. It is dismissed in its entirety. The life sentence is set aside, and in its place, the appellant will suffer death.
Kipkemboi, alongside other raiders, are said to have stormed Mzee Kamau's home when they shot him with an arrow before Kipkemboi allegedly slashed him with a panga. The judge stated that three witnesses who hid in a gully clearly identified him, having schooled with him and lived in the same village. Kipkemboi, through his lawyer Bernard Ngetich, accused the witnesses of giving differing testimonies about the incident. Sylvia Chebet, Citizen Weekend.
Nairobi today played host to a meeting by the presidents of the 5 member states of the East African Community. During the summit meeting, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has been the EACC chairman for slightly over a year, handed over the chairmanship to Tanzania's President Jakaya Kikwete. Bella Ganga attended the summit and filed the following report.
After 1 year at the helm of the East African Community, President Uhuru Kenyatta has passed on the baton to his Tanzanian counterpart, President Jakaya Kikwete. Under President Kenyatta's watch, the EAC has placed special emphasis on transport and communication infrastructure development in keeping with the region's goal of facilitating free movement of goods, people and capital.
The implementation of the One Area Network by Rwanda, Uganda and Kenya is indeed an excellent beginning. This tremendous benefit will be shared within the entire Eastern African community when the region adopts harmonized calling rates in July of this year.
But as Kenya handed over the EAC chairmanship to Tanzania, President Kenyatta challenged the incoming EAC chairman to hasten the removal of existing non-tariff barriers. On his part, President Kikwete pledged his country's commitment to the integration process with focus on deepening trade in the region.
Excellencies, I thank you for the trust and confidence you have reposed in me and my country. I will not let you down, nor will my government and the people of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Between 2009 and 2013, intra-regional trade increased by 65%, with trade volumes of 530 billion shillings. President Jakaya Kikwete takes over the EAC chairmanship at a time when the regional trade bloc is looking to transform into a monetary union by 2024. Kikwete's term as EAC will, however, be shorter, as he is scheduled to step down as Tanzania's president in October this year, when Tanzania will hold its general elections. Bella Ganga, Citizen Weekend, online edition.
And 15 judges will from next Monday commence the hearing of 200 court cases in a bid to reduce a backlog of almost 500,000 unresolved cases. Chief Justice Willie Mutunga has said some of the cases that will be disposed of have been pending for over 45 years. Mutunga has said the judiciary will need at least 3 years to clear the cases without admitting new ones. The CJ highlighted the shortage of court prosecutors and frequent court adjournments among the main causes of the backlog.
Justice delayed, so goes the legal maxim, is justice denied. To take the High Court 12.5 years, the magistrates 2.4 years, and the Kadhi Courts 1.9 years, all working in concert to clear this backlog. With the present number of judges, each High Court judge has on average 1,600 cases Our target is to clear 15,000 cases, starting with the oldest, and working down to the more recent ones filed 5 years ago.
2 people died and 11 others were seriously injured after a matatu collided head-on with an oncoming lorry at Kwajomvu area along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. This comes a day after 4 other people died yesterday at the same location in a road accident which involved a matatu and a lorry. According to one of the passengers that survived the accident, Alfred Ngao, the accident occurred when the matatu driver attempted to overtake another vehicle. The matatu was heading towards Mombasa town while the lorry was going the opposite direction towards Miritini area. According to the nurse in charge at Coast General Hospital, Cecilia Muthambi, 9 people were admitted at the hospital while the remaining 2 were taken to a private hospital in Mombasa County.
Mwenye amepata bilateral fractures, mguu mmoja umekatika na mwingine pengine utaenda kukatwa. Huo ni mbaya sana. Wale wamekuja pengine ni mmoja tu mwenye si mbaya sana, otherwise wale wengine they are very bad.
Kufika Mabati ndio hapo sasa na overtake, amemaliza ku overtake na hii ni water tank na hii ina overtake. Zikapambana hapo.
And this week on Truth Meter Digital Edition, we are bringing you the funny clips that made headlines across the world and here in Kenya.
Our members of parliament were busy this week voting on, among other things, who should be called Mheshimiwa and who should not. Leadership is, after all, about making tough decisions for and on behalf of your constituency. It is therefore bad enough when an MP misses a chance to vote unless there is a good reason not to. But imagine having to miss a critical vote due to a rather interesting reason, like this MP in Canada. Well, he made headlines across the world because of this.
Order. Does the member for Winnipeg Centre want to respond to the points?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I realize I did inadvertently leave my seat briefly in the middle of the debate. I can blame it on a sale that was out down at the Hudson's Bay. They had men's underwear on for half price, and I bought a bunch that was clearly too small for me, and I find it difficult to sit for any length of time, Mr. Speaker. So I apologize if it was necessary for me to leave my seat briefly, but I did not mean to forfeit my right to vote.
That is the comical world of the National Assembly. All in a day's work. Meanwhile, it seems behavioral habits are really changing in the same Senate. Just look at one Isaac Melly, Senator for Uasin Gishu. He was leading by example, showing students how to strike. He had the chain and the padlock and was brave enough to take it to the next level. It is about leading by example and from the front.
We are now marching to the administration block. Tutaenda tufunge na nyororo na kufuli, alafu kama wewe ni mwanaume na uko kwa serikali kama mimi, ukuje ufungue. Sawa sawa? Hiyo ndio mambo ambayo tumekubaliana.
He is all man. Well, that's it for the online edition of Truth Meter. Enough said.
Wale wote ambao wamepitia uchungu, sisi we shall sacrifice for the sake of the success of these people.
And thank you so much for your time. That's the latest at this hour. My name is Lillian Muli Kanene. Have a wonderful evening.